שנזכה בנחמת ציון, that we have the merit of the redemption of Am Yisrael and the building of the Bet HaMikdash v'mira v'yameinu, amen. In this very auspicious day of Tisha BeAv, I'm broadcasting live from our synagogue at the office, as the main minyan is praying, and I will join them a bit later. But nevertheless, I did not want to have the regular audience via iTorah.com at 9:15 to have a class in honor of Tisha BeAv. Today's class, graciously sponsored by the Baghdadi family, Kohanim from Miami, Le'ilu Nishmat, their beloved grandparents, Shelomo HaKohen Baghdadi Ben Seti and his wife, Luisa Leah Baghdadi Bat Sara, Alehem Shalom, as well as by David Malka and family, Le'ilu Nishmat, Sultana Bat Freha, Aleha Shalom. Iratzon of the words of Torah, the Neshamot will have an Aliyah in Gan Eden, Amen. Has been a very busy Tisha BeAv for us. Last night after Arvit, the Kahal thirsty for words of Torah, in which we had a beautiful class in Spanish, since the majority of the visitors do speak that language, but we have the loyal audience in English, so therefore I will give this class in English. So we had reviewed together in the earlier part of last week the many historical events that afflicted Am Yisrael in this very unfortunate day. I saw two fascinating Hiddushim in the name of the Ben Ish Hai in the commentary of the Gemara known as Benayahu and Ben Yehoyada. And I'm not going to go through the History channel because we already have this in writing and we have discussed this in the Shiur. But I'd like to talk about one particular topic that is not really mentioned as it should be. We all connect Tisha BeAv usually to the destruction of the first and second Bet HaMikdash. We connect Tisha BeAv to the story of the Meragelim, but today I'd like to go a step back and discuss Yaakov and Esav. And it's important to review this chapter of history due to the fact that Tisha BeAv origination came from this issue between Yaakov Avinu and Esav, his brother. You can see a lot of interesting details in Perashah Vayishlach, in Sefer Bereshit. So the Pasuk tells us that Yaakov Avinu went back to pick up a few things, leftovers, and suddenly he met Saro Shel Esav, the ministering angel of Esav. The Pasuk says, Vayavek ish imo ad alot hashachar. This person, which was an angel as we know, was struggling with Yaakov until dawn. The angel says, Shalecheni ki alah hashachar, send me out because dawn is arriving. Bayar ki lo yachol lo. When this angel saw that he wasn't able to truly defeat Yaakov, Baiga bechafierech yerecho, and he hurt or wounded the thigh of Yaakov Avinu, al ken lo yochelu bnei Israel et gid hanashe. Therefore, the Jewish people have a prohibition of consuming something which is called in English sciatic nerve, which is towards the rear of the animal. This is the Pesukim of the Torah. I have mentioned the Hatam Sofer that describes, and it says that this struggle between Yaakov and the angel of Esav happened to be actually on the night of Tisha BeAv. And it goes, the Ben Ish Hai, and it says, the Pasuk writes that we don't eat the sciatic nerve. The Halakha writes that on the day of Tisha BeAv, we know that we have many limitations, many prohibitions, many restrictions. One of them is a very interesting halakha, that it comes to the washing of the hands on the night or day. Obviously by us it's almost 9:30 in the morning, so we already went through 13 hours already of Tisha BeAv. Another 11, I believe, are missing, a bit less. And the halakha is that when a person washes the hands for ritual needs, for example, a person woke up in the morning, or a person goes to the bathroom, and you make netilah, wash your hands only up to the knuckles. In other words, don't wash your entire hands up to the wrist as we do every day of the year, but there are 2 days of the year that we have this exception. One is the day of Tisha BeAv, and one is the day of Yom Kippur. But today is Tisha BeAv, so therefore we give the honor to the day of Tisha BeAv. And comes the Ben Ish Hai and asks, what difference does it make if a person washes the hands up to the wrist or washes the hands up to the knuckles? What difference does it make? What's so special about this part of the hand of a human being that the Hachamim made a gezerah that on the day of Tisha BeAv, these hands remains dry? So the Ben Ish Hai says a fascinating hidush. I never saw this till yesterday. And Baruch Hashem, we learned through the life, through the years, but for some godly known reason, only this information was made available to us yesterday night, or before Tisha BeAv actually began. And it says the Ben Ish Hai, remember the Torah prohibition of eating the Gid and Nasheh that we already mentioned in the name of Rabbi Chaim Palachi, that the prohibition of eating Gid and Nasheh is the corresponding commandment to the day of Tisha BeAv? So it says, what the Torah says, Vaiga bechaf yerech yerecho. What language does the Torah uses in order to pinpoint the location where the Malach of Esav wounded Yaakov Avinu? Chaf yerech. Chaf yerech literally means the thigh of the person. But I ask you a question. Who washes the thigh? Usually, especially on Tisha BeAv, that we don't take showers, but when a person washes their body, obviously certain parts of the body get much more attention than other parts of the body. So it says the Ben Ish Hai that in Hebrew, this part of the hand is called kaf. This is called, the entire hand, it's called yad. Why it's called yad? Because yad, numerical value is 14, and the 14 divisions exist on the fingers of the person. 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14. Last night, I'm sure everybody did Borei Meorei Ha'esh at the respective synagogues or at home. And how do we do Borei Meorei Ha'esh? Like this. We take these 2 fingers, we bend them inwards, and then we have these 4 fingers, and we shine them towards the fire of the Havdalah, because that is the halakha. The halakha is that when we say the beracha of Borei Meorei Ha'esh, it needs to be some type of benefit to the lights, to the candles. And this beracha, by the way, is only recited on Mosai Shabbat, Saturday night. If a person for some reason didn't do the beracha of Bore Meorei Ha'esh last night, there is no makeup. You gotta wait till next Mosai Shabbat. And the reason is because halachically, if you remember back in the Perashah Bereshit, when Adam and Hava, so to speak, were evicted Another Tisha BeAv, the entire city of Yerushalayim collapses and a new city is built also by the Romans. Another Tisha BeAv, a couple of years later, we have the first crusades against Am Israel. Another Tisha BeAv in the year 1290, England expulses Am Israel, the Yehudim, from England, as also confiscation of property and Torah books, which, by the way, this Friday or Thursday, the church in England wrote a letter of apology to Am Israel that lives in the United Kingdom because of this tragedy that took place in the year 1290. I do have the article with me. I have not read it, but I read the headline, and it says, "The Catholic Church apologizes to the Jewish people. Big miracle." 200 years later, from England, we were evicted from Spain and Portugal. Then we have other calamities in between. We have the First War. We have the deportation to the Treblinka concentration camp on Tisha BeAv. Iraq and Kuwait stopped talking on the day of Tisha BeAv, which later on will be known as the Gulf War, that Israel, uninvolved in this topic, received 39 missiles gifts from Saddam Hussein in Mahshemo. 1994, it was the bombing of the Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires, known as the AMIA, and a day later or two later, regretfully, was the tragedy in the city of Panama City, Panama, 2 hours away from here, in which a terrorist attack, an airplane exploded mid-air. The majority of the casualties of that unfortunate tragedy were Yehudim. So we do understand how somehow, somewhere, all these historical events that go from the time of Yaakov Avinu all the time to our generation, the day of Tisha BeAv is dark. But we cannot forget the fact that earlier we prayed Shacharit and we read Megillat Echa as we do at night, and the pasuk says, Kara alai moed. The day of Tisha BeAv, it's called a holiday. For this reason, today we did not say Anna. We said Yehi Shem. The Ben Ish Hai asks a question. In the Gemara only mentions the day of Tisha BeAv. Why don't you bring the day, another holiday? Why specifically, when you talk to me about a positive day and a negative day, you only bring me Tisha BeAv? To most of us, Tisha BeAv is a negative day. To all of us, I will say. So the short answer, says the Ben Ish Hai, is as follows. That always, if someone would like to know when is the day, when Tisha BeAv will fall, which day of the week, you follow Pesach. The first night of Pesach always coincides with the night of Tisha BeAv. And we'll remember vividly that this year, 5781 or 2021 for the Gregorian calendar, when was the Pesach? Mosa'e Shabbat. When is this Tisha BeAv? Mosa'e Shabbat. Here is the parallel. But as the Ben Ish Hai, where do we get a hint from the Torah that Pesach and Tisha BeAv are connected? He says the Ben Ish Hai is actually a pasuk from the Torah that says, Al matzot umbrorim yocheluhu, the night of matzah and the night of bitterness. And they seem to contradict. Matzah means the redemption, the salvation, the exodus from Egypt, our miracle, our liberation, our birth as a nation. And maror, it's bitterness. So it says the Ben Ish Hai, the matzah connects to Pesach, and the maror connects to Tisha BeAv. For this reason, we know the halacha is that in the night of Pesach, we have different items on the tray of Pesach. And one of them is the egg of the Pesach. Now I ask you a question. What symbolism the egg has on the night of Pesach? The Korban Pesach is represented by the Zeroa. So what is the Korban Pesach? What is the egg? We say Zecher leKorban Hagiga, as a commemoration of the festive offering. I ask you a question. Which offering contain eggs? To my limited knowledge, unless I'm missing something, there was never an offering that contained eggs. So why do we have an egg in the Seder of Pesach? So the short answer is that the night of Mehillah, that the egg in the night of Pesach is a reminder of Tisha BeAv, that due to the destruction of the first and second Bet HaMikdash, we cannot do the Korban Pesach, we cannot do the Korban Hagigah. So in order for us not to forget the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash and or the sacrifices that took place in the Bet HaMikdash, in the night of Pesach, we place the Zeroa on the table and we eat the egg as a commemoration of the Korban Pesach, since everyone knows that egg is the food of Avelut. For this reason, Haz v'Shalom, when somebody comes from the Bet HaChaim, from the cemetery, they give him a Sa'udat Havra'ah. The first meal from the cemetery usually contains pita bread and hard-boiled egg. Or Tisha BeAv, on a regular year that is not preceded by Shabbat, what do we eat before the Ta'anit? Besides Mjedra and Lebanon, we eat hard-boiled egg without salt. Some people even burn ashes and they eat it with ashes as a reminder of the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash. What a fascinating Hidush that comes from the great Ben Ish Chai. So, additionally, Kinot are the special prayers that we said today after Shacharit, before the Sefer Torah comes out. I'm sure you saw it in your synagogue. We remove the parochet, the curtain of the Echal. We put a letot. We take away the rimonim. We do a lot of things. We even dim the lights of the synagogue. We sit on the floor in order to feel a certain sense of mourning. And in the day of Tisha BeAv, in the Kinot prayers, we also add a comparison chart between the night of Pesach and the night of Tisha BeAv, and the day of Tisha BeAv. And we compare how we left Egypt with the man, with the stream of water, with the clouds of glory, with the leadership of Moshe, Aharon, and Miriam, and Hashem, Bichvodo Be'atzmo, so to speak, acting as a GPS for our journey, and we left together as a union, as a group, as a team. And lo alenu velo alechem, when it came to Exodus of Yerushalayim, we left empty-handed, starving, famine, illness, and God forbid, many calamities and tragedies that transpire during the days around, on, before, and after Tisha BeAv. And that comparison supports the explanation of the Ben Ish Chai. And if you look in the book of the Kinot, there are maybe 20 or 30 differences or discrepancies, and the Pasuk says, Beseti mi Misraim, Beseti mi Yerushalayim. How different it was when I left Egypt and when I left Yerushalayim. When I left Egypt, when I left Yerushalayim, several times comparing these two particular elements. Now, another concept that the Gemara brings down concerning the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, and the truth is that what you can say about Tisha BeAv, it's literally endless. You have Asara Ruge Malchut. We have the 10 martyrs, the 10 great tzaddikim. I have it here. I'll read them quickly just to mention their name on the day of Tisha BeAv. It's also important. So we begin by the famous Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. He was the father of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. Also we have Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha Kohen Gadol. He was a high priest. He was the one that the Gemara in Berachot tells us that 1 year Rabbi Ishmael Kohen Gadol entered the Kodesh HaKodashim and he saw like the essence of Hashem in a much more revealed manner. And the Gemara there says that Hashem said to Ishmael, Ishmael beni barecheni, Ishmael my son, bless me. So the famous question can be asked, okay, God is telling you, bless me. What are you going to bless God with? What are you going to say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Have Shalom Bayit, have Parnasah, have a lot of children. What are you going to say? So interesting enough, Rabbi Ishmael Kohen Gadol says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yeh ratzon milefanecha, may be your will, shichveshu rachamecha et ka'asecha. May your anger conquer your mehila. May your anger be or rather the opposite. May your compassion conquer the anger. Meaning to say that when the actions of a Jew may activate Hashem's anger, let compassion step up to the plate and control that reaction. Ve'igolu rachamecha al midotecha, and may your compassion always be revealed against your judgment. Ve'titnaheg imanu lifnim mishurat hadin, and give us the benefit of the doubt. This prayer actually is found in the Siddur, in the morning prayers after the Akedah. Ribono shel olam kemo shekava Avraham Avinu et rachamav ken yichbeshu. That sentence that follows is from the tractate Berachot given by Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha Kohen Gadol to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what was God's reaction? Bene'ena li berosho. Hashem nodded with his head, meaning to say, always activating the din instead of activating judgment, activating compassion. There is a bit of judgment, but most of it is compassion way. He, Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha, was the famous one that his wife wasn't able to conceive children. She wasn't able to conceive children. And every time that, I have it here, every time she conceived a child, regretfully didn't make it. But interesting enough, every time that she will not make a child, the next door neighbor was able to conceive a child. Just 1 second. I have it here. Okay. So finally, the husband goes to the rabbi, which I don't know who it was on that time, and it says, Chacham, can you ask next door neighbor what is their formula to be able to conceive children? The rabbi went, and the husband says to the rabbi, very simple, we do the mitzvah the way it needs to be done. But my wife and I have an agreement, which is, by the way, not halachically required, but it's an interesting concept. What is this agreement? We made up that every night that she needs to go to the mikveh, I also will go to the mikveh during the day. Halachically, you're not required. Halachically, you should be required to go to the mikveh the morning after doing the mitzvah. That's called Baal Keri, etc. So when the husband heard that this is the peculiar tradition, he said, okay, I'm also going to go to the mikveh the night that my wife needs to go to the mikveh. So comes the next month, the husband goes to the mikveh, and the wife goes to the mikveh. When she came out of the mikveh, she came across a non-kosher animal. And she said, haram, my husband is waiting at home after he went to the mikveh, and I see a non-kosher animal. Let me go back to the mikveh. She went back to the mikveh. She comes out of the mikveh. A goy crosses her way, and she says, I'm going to see a goy before I go home. Let me go back. Don't ask me, please, how many times she went to the mikveh that night. But in the meantime, in Shamayim, there was a commotion. The Malachim were laughing at this lady. They said, what kind of woman is this? What a fanatic is she? What for? Or Olam said to the Malachim, instead of laughing at her, go and make sure that from the moment that she leaves the mikveh until she gets home, there is no goy, there is no reptile, there is no dog, there is no cat, nothing not kosher should be in her way. That night, she conceived Rabbi Ishmael, which eventually will become the Kohen Gadol. And that's why, if you look in the story of Rabbi Ishmael, Kohen Gadol, it tells us that when this decree of the Romans came against him and others, and the 10 Tzaddikim, he was the one going up to Shamayim and inquiring from the Malachim if this decree can be aborted or abolished or not. Now, by the way, this story of Rabbi Ishmael's mother's pregnancy gives us the understanding, and especially to the female audience, that whenever a lady goes to the mikveh, you have a mikveh attendant. What's the reason of having to have a mikveh attendant? Many reasons. One reason is to make sure not only that the body, that the hair is completely submerged on the water, proper dipping of the mikveh. Number two, the mikveh lady usually says kasher, according to many traditions and opinions. But another reason is, so when the wife comes out of the mikveh, the first person that she will meet will be a holy Jewish woman to bring kedusha to the person. That's why to be a mikveh attendant is a great merit, but also has to be a person with an obvious level of Yirat Shamayim and Ma'asim Tovim, etc. The other 8 Hachamim were the famous Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, Rabbi Hananiah ben Teradion, Rabbi Yishua Sofer, Rabbi Elazar ben Dama, Rabbi Hanina ben Hachinai, Rabbi Hutzpit Aturgeman, and Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. How these decrees against the Asara Harugei Malchut actually started. So if you look at the story of the Asara Harugei Malchut, this was initiated by the Caesar when he was reading the Torah, and he comes across the story of Yosef and his brothers. He says, a goy, he says, I feel bad for Yosef. I see what happened to him. I see how the brothers really disliked him, and I feel his pain. But what I don't see, says the Caesar, is that the Torah mentions any kind of consequence to the pain and suffering of Yosef. And that's why, according to the Kabbalistic opinions, and I read you quickly what it says in the name of the Shara Gilgulim. Just 1 second. It says that the Shara Gilgulim says that these 10 neshamot of Mehila, of these 10 tzaddikim, in a way were there to atone for the 10 brothers of Yosef HaSaddik. And another explanation says it came to atone for the 10 sufferings that Yosef HaSaddik endured from the moment that was sold until the moment that he became a great viceroy to Egypt. So there were 10 ways that Yosef suffered, and the tikkun of each of these suffering caused by the 10 brothers of Yosef was the Gilgul and the reincarnation of these Tzaddikim. I know, but what I'm saying is very, very, very deep, but we need to understand, like Borei Olam doesn't leave any unpaid, so to speak, invoices in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara writes in Gemara Pesachim, I believe, in HaKadosh Baruch Hu mefacheach sechar kol beriya ubriya. Borei Olam does not let go any good deeds that a person had done, have performed. And this is in a way the opposite. Yosef HaSaddik, and this is the Caesar talking, Yosef the righteous went through pain tremendously, and the Torah doesn't reveal openly what happened. Although he didn't read Mefarshim, which obviously is not expected, but he does have a valid point. And this is how the Asara Rugei Malchut took place. Many times our Rabbanim, our Hachamim tell us that through history, that sometimes the few pay the price for the many, which brings us very briefly just to mention the famous Gemara in Masechet Gittin that says the story of Kamsa Bar Kamsa, the famous story that we know what happened, in which the wrong invitation, the wrong person was invited, this person was ashamed, was embarrassed publicly, the Hachamim stayed quiet, he went to accuse them against the Roman Empire, and we know the rest of the story. So this only reinforces that these two tragic incidents that I just mentioned, the 10 martyrs atoning for the brothers of Yosef, and the story of Kamsa Bar Kamsa, it only reinforces the famous Gemara that says that the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash took place for Sinat Hinam, for baseless hatred, meaning to say, not so much on our godly connection with Hashem, but actually Ben Adam La Havero, which is a mandatory area in life that a person must reinforce. And this topic, we can talk forever, and there is always going to be new lesson and new messages. But the bottom line is that if we really want to Tisha BeAv to truly turn into a good day, a day of salvation, a day of celebration, a day of freedom, and of the Geula of Mashiach's arrival, we must activate ourselves better and better. And I'm not saying that we're not trying to get better, but it seems that we need to try a bit more. We need to go the extra mile. If it's, I'll tell you something that we read at home. Yesterday we read the Aventura of Shabbat Hazon. Hazon Yeshayahu ben Amos. Hazon means the concept of a vision. A vision. So the Bilev Yitzhak of Bardichov, the great Kedushat Levi, says that every Yehudi, according to the spiritual status, can have a glimpse through the neshama, obviously, of the concept of the Beit HaMikdash. And I'm not sure how many of us really can see the Beit HaMikdash, even spiritually, but that's what he writes. And he brings a beautiful mashal, and it says, what is the Beit HaMikdash looks like? So he brings a mashal of a father, a loving father, who buys a beautiful suit for his son. And the son puts the suit, but he goes place on the mud, on the sand, and he breaks it. Literally, the suit, recycle. Then the father says, let me wait a few years. He's going to become a bit older. Instead of 4 or 5, he's going to be 7, 8. Let me give him another suit. Hopefully by now, he learned the lesson. And the same disaster happened. The kid puts on the suit, beautiful suit, custom made by the tailor, the way it was back in the day, in his generation, give or take 200 years ago. And again, the same story happens. So what does the father finally decides to do? So it says the Kedushat Levi, the father takes the suit, puts it against the wall, and tells the son, when you're ready or when you are mature, I will be giving you this suit. So it says the Kedushat Levi, the first suit represents the first Bet HaMikdash. We had it all. Shlomo HaMelech built it, whatever you wanted to have, okay. We grew, it was destroyed, miracle of Purim, prior to that was the threat of Haman and Hashverosh. We also blew it. We destroyed the second Bet HaMikdash. Now we need to wait until we are ready. The question is, how do we get ready to bring Mashiach? So I already gave you one tip, the concept of Ben Adam LaHavero. Ben Adam LaHavero means interpersonal relationship, enhanced behavior and respect and complement and love between husband and wife, parents and children, relatives, in-laws, friends, family, friends, etc. But there is one area also of Ben Adam LaMakom. And I will finish this with a story that happened in our synagogue on Erev Shabbat, this past Shabbat. Yes. You need me? ¿Dónde está?
Ya vamos a acabar. Acabé.
Wait in Tana de Beliahu. Okay, I'm going to take the recording with me. I'm going to talk as I walk.